Here you can see a faulty pair of GHD 3.1B straighteners. The light is not illuminated when plugged in, and you can see the flex is damaged. I'm going to use a mini flathead screwdriver, a mini Phillips, a medium sized Phillips and two regular Phillips screwdrivers to complete this repair. You can see I've removed both sides of the hinge covers with a small flathead screwdriver. This reveals the two Phillips screws that hold the hinge together. You can also see the damaged flex that I've crudely repaired with red insulation tape before I start this repair. Take two regular Phillips screwdrivers and put it in both bolt heads either side of the hinge. Once you've got the Phillips screwdrivers in the bolt heads, hold one tight and turn the other screwdriver anti-clockwise. It does take some elbow grease to break the seal the first time you separate the hinge. Take one of the screwdrivers to push the brass hinge out of the straightener case. You can see it's lifted the bolt slightly, so you can now put a screwdriver underneath and lift the bolt clear along with the hinge. With the bolt out of the way, you can then separate both sides of the straighteners. This will reveal two screws here and also here. These are what hold the two parts of the case together around the power flex. We need to remove both of these bolts with a Phillips screwdriver. Once removed, we need to lever off the rubber band that retains the two parts of the flex housing. Just slide it back down the wire a bit and then lift the top off. With the top of the case now removed, you can see where the mains cable connector terminates into a female socket on a small circuit board here. Over time, with normal wear and tear, this female socket tends to stretch a bit. This causes a lot of arcing of electricity and causes a lot of shorting of straighteners. You can see it slides apart quite easily, and for this exercise we're also going to replace this female connector which bolts directly into the motherboard of the straighteners. Here's the female connector, and we need to unbolt the plate that covers the switch. It's got two Phillips screws which we need to remove. You then need to lift the small plastic plate upwards and away from the switch, which will reveal the motherboard underneath. The female power socket connector is screwed onto the motherboard in two locations. There's a long brown wire that is attached just underneath the switch here, and a blue wire which is bolted onto the motherboard here. On this old connector that I've already replaced, you can see where the connector is actually stretched and is misshaped. You can also see how the blue wire is much shorter than the brown wire. This is because they need to go to different locations on the motherboard of the straighteners. Don't forget, before you put it all back together, remember to put the rubber retaining band over the top of the power cable. Then gently push the power cable into the female socket on the small circuit board and make sure it all lines up nicely in the casing. Tuck any of the wires away behind the hinge so they don't foul the screw holes. Once you've got a good snug fit, put the top of the casing back on and do up the two screws. You can see by this point I'd already bolted the plastic plate back over the switch. Please note at this point the hinge spring is upside down. Here you can see it's the correct way up. Make sure that the closed end of the hinge spring goes into the side of the straighteners with no switch. It should push together quite easily like this. Push the brass hinge barrel through the hinge hole like this. It may take a bit of fiddling because it can be quite stiff. Finger tighten the screw from the other end of the hinge like so. Tighten the hinge screw to the two screwdrivers, turning in a clockwise direction. Careful not to over tighten or the straighteners may not spring open. Adjust the screw tightness as necessary. Untwist your flex, plug your straighteners in, turn the switch, and hey presto, you should have a solid red light and the straightener should now be getting warm. Your power cable has now been successfully replaced and your straighteners now live on. If this has been helpful, don't forget to subscribe.